Okay, thank you for having me. Some of the people I've seen you around, which from now on, when you see me in the building, make sure you pull me aside, say hello. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey today. And tell you about my story. I mean, how a kid who had learning disabilities when I was a kid, I had dyslexia, I had other issues. I was a C-something student at Syracuse. Whenever you hear something, it means that you don't even want to admit how low you were. Okay, and how did I go from that to being on the one of the youngest people ever on the executive committee and on the board of the world's largest future exchange, which we grew at the time that I was on it from 800 million and took it public for 12 billion. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my journey. And if you allow yourself to come into and just relax, and this is going to be kind of all over the place, just so kind of buckle up, just get used to this kind of stuff with me. I'm going to take you into my life and some of the things that I've been through, some of the great things, some of the bad things. But what I want to stress about leadership and success is that being a leader and successful has never and will never have anything to do with the car you drive, the home you live in, and how much money you have. The true leaders are the people that make a difference in other people's lives. They make a difference in your family's lives, in your friends' lives. You want to be the person, as I talk about, I'm the 3 a.m. phone call for a lot of people. Basically because I don't sleep and they know that I'll answer the phone and I'll show up. But it's about being reliable, it's about being there. And we're seeing a lot of stuff in social media now and on Instagram, on Facebook, that is just so blown out of proportion that, when Vinny and I, were traders, thank God you didn't have Facebook and you didn't have Instagram because it would have been slightly embarrassing, but you'll hear some of the stories. But it's entrepreneurship has been completely blown out of proportion on what it takes and everything else. So we're going to start with just one slide on entrepreneurship to show you that where it goes and where we go from here. So the new business stats are that 90% of all businesses fail. People don't realize. You see everybody on Instagram going, follow your passion, follow your dream. I'm building my empire. Now, I know some people that have empires. I work with a few billionaires. I work with Vinny. You know what Vinny has never said in his entire life? I'm going to go build my empire. Vinny started off as a kid from Brooklyn with literally nothing. His father was a pizza maker. He went to West Point. He bought his first building when he was there. He became one of the largest traders at the exchange, was a competitor of mine on a clearinghouse, was so much bigger than me. And I'll tell you his story in a second too, but this is where you have to understand that you don't go out and build your empire. You go out, you find an idea, you find something that you enjoy, and you build from there. After the 90% fail, the 10% that remain, most of them fail as well. And in 2 years, 70% will all fail. So when you hear about these people on Instagram saying, look what I'm making and look what I'm doing, yeah, they might do that for the first year, for the first 2 years, between, what you can do on, between these certain things with the OnlyFans page and all this other stuff, right? I was going to open up an OnlyFans page, but I don't think anybody's going to sign up. So it's just not going to work. So, but now what I want to talk about is my journey. Now, the guy on the left, that was my first day on the floor in Chicago. Now, the guy on the left thought he knew absolutely everything. I just knew it all, right? The guy on my right, which was about 2 weeks ago, I realized that the guy on my left knew absolutely nothing. And I'm still learning that I didn't know anything. And the whole point about leadership is knowledge, okay? When you can be knowledgeable on many different topics and, not just superficial knowledge, like really knowing the product, and the concept that it will really help. So let me tell you about my first day at work. And what we're going to talk about is the difference between the workplace when Vinny and I, where we worked, and I'm going to show you what it was really about, and what's kind of morphing into the new workplace. And we're going to try to kind of mesh those two together today a little bit. So that first day, and oh yeah, by the way, I was at Panthers Pub, and I was so happy that, we can curse here. Okay, so trust me, as being a floor trader, you want to be able to curse. Okay, there's videos with curses in it. There's a lot of stuff. And also, if anybody has a question during this, just feel free, raise your hand. Okay, But okay, so that first day of work, I walk in, I'm wearing my New York Giants button because I was a New Yorker living in Chicago. That was not good. My button that said, "Go for it. Life is not a dress rehearsal." I was one of those kids like, okay, I got this. I just graduated. There's nothing I can't do. And I walked into my boss's office, which I had to wait 2 weeks to see him because he was a real mafia guy from Chicago at the Exchange, and they found his friend in a ditch like 2 weeks before. So I walk in, and they're like, "Hey, listen, Jimmy's not around. Come back in 2 weeks." And I was all alone in Chicago, and I literally just sat in my apartment for 2 weeks. And there was no Netflix back then. There was no Hulu. There was nothing. It's like you couldn't watch anything. So I go back in, and I walk in there, and I'm like, "Jimmy," I go, "I'm going to be the best trader you've ever seen. It's going to be amazing. Wait till you see what I can do. After I'm a clerk, and I'm a broker, and I'm just going to blow this place apart." And he looks at me and goes, "Kid, sit down and shut the fuck up." You know what I did? I sat down and I shut the fuck up. And he looks at me and he goes, "Listen, this trading floor is the coolest place you've ever seen. All the different jackets, the yelling, the screaming, the money, the rush, the enthusiasm, the fighting." He goes, "But one of these days," this was literally the best advice I ever got. He goes, "One of these days, you're going to walk in, it's going to be a job. You're not going to want to get hit in the head. You're not going to want to get spit in the face. You're not going to want to deal with the pressures of what it's like, because I only traded my own money, like Vinny. Okay, so when I had a bad day, it was like you wanted to go home and throw the dog out the window. We didn't, but you felt like that. Okay, so a bad day for me was really a bad day. Okay, but he said to me, he goes, "It's going to be a job one day, but it will be a job that will give you the opportunity to do things and learn things in life that you would never, ever have." So when that day comes, and that day did come, I remember it. I had a headache. I didn't want to be there. And I remembered how 15 years before, this guy yells at me and saying, "Listen, this is what it's going to be like." And it was a completely, utterly amazing moment in my life, because instead of Gary Vaynerchuk, anybody follows him? Okay, Gary V. Okay, he's a partner of mine at a restaurant up in New York. And this whole bit about, "You don't like it, quit." I'm like, no, you don't like it, figure it out. Okay, because it's one thing if you're absolutely positively miserable that you cannot function. That's one thing. But if you're having a bad week, a bad day, your boss got on your case, I'll show you how we sucked it up, because I'll tell you stories about what happened to us that will blow your mind. So we're going to play a video here of what the floor was like. I'm going to show you the Chicago floor. We're going to show you the New York floor, and then we're going to show you the greatest trading movie of all time. Now, when you see the trading movie of all time, when Vinny and I were trading in the Gulf War, this is what it was like being in the pits. This was no BS. So if you could play that video, that would be great.
The biggest pits in the world are here in Chicago. It's a very competitive environment.
Guys would literally look at you and say, "You're a fucking idiot. I can't believe you do that fucking trade."
Finally, the guy lost his cool, ran over, and bit the guy in the nose.
Traders at New York and Oil Exchange buying and selling future contracts of crude oil, setting the price of oil through supply and demand, news and rumors, hopes and fears of oil supplies being cut. David Greenberg has been trading here at the pit for 16 years. What's his big worry?
I know it keeps saying Venezuela is the main word, but it is a major contributor to this up market right now.
Back in the pit, there's suddenly other news to drive the deals the traders write down and toss in to be recorded. Saudi Arabia announces that it's ready to increase its oil production to help make up for the shortfall from Venezuela. Immediately, David Greenberg sees prices fall by 80 cents a barrel. So life at around $30 a barrel of oil goes on, for now, until something new and unknown and perhaps unknowable happens.
I knew I was on TV, so this is just good marketing. There was nothing going on there, but I wanted my Sterling jacket to show. Good marketing.
The cold winter has apparently not affected the orange harvest. Prices to fall should be dramatic.
For Christ's sake, Sal!
And now it's your turn. So we're going to teach you what it was like being on the floor. So what I'd love everybody to do is get up. This is an interactive lesson here. Got to take your jacket off for this one. Okay, now, for those of you that can see me, when we were on the trading floor, we did everything by sight lines, by word of mouth. We traded millions and millions of dollars worth of crude oil, gold, platinum, silver, without one lawyer, without one contract, by a simple wave of the hands, flick of the wrist, and look into somebody's eyes. Anybody here, parents, were stockbrokers on the trading floor? Okay, they were the calm ones, okay? We were the ones that were from Long Island, Bronx, Brooklyn. I always used to say that the guys from the stock market were the guys at the Knick game that still had their ties tied up here and their jacket on at 11 o'clock, and the commodity guys were the guys that were just totally wasted and in jeans and a T-shirt, you know, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a much different crowd. So if we were going to buy something, which way do you think your hands were going to be? They were going to be in. I want it. I'm buying. I want them. I want it. So everybody just put your hands like this, and I want to hear buy them. Buy. Okay. Now when I say 1, 2, 3, I want it on as loud as you can. 1, 2, 3. Buy. Okay, that was good, but West Point kicked your ass, and a kindergarten class kicked your ass. So your life depended on this. So it would be like, buy them. Okay, from the gut. So I want to hear this so tight and so loud. It's like your family's not going to get fed if you don't get, because you got to remember, it was recognition training, trading. Just because you said buy them, I could say, I'll sell it to you, I'll sell it to you. You did not go out with my brother the other night. You're not getting anything. You did, you're getting the rest. So it's not like in today's world that you push the button and you get the trade no matter what. So when you get as loud as you can, 1, 2, 3. Buy them! Much better. Now, 1, 2, 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Buy! Good. Now, sold is hands out, right? So I want to hear everybody go, 1, 2, 3, sold. 1, 2, 3. Sold! Very good. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. Sold! Great. Now what we're going to do is that, I never get this right, but I'm going to try. So everybody's got a birthday from January to June is going to go buy them. And everybody that's got a birthday from July to December is going to say sold, as loud as they can. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Sold! You see, now it's like it gets a little confusing. Like, how the hell do we follow all this stuff, right? Okay, we're going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. Sold! Okay, now what I want you to do, the last thing, is that I want you to keep it going. Whoever said buy them, whoever said sold, just keep waving your hands and feel it. Because this is what it was like all day. It was the greatest rush. It was like going literally to the Stanley Cup every day. You know, and if you were pissed at your spouse or your partner or your kid, okay, you could just rip somebody apart. I'll tell you a story in a second. And it was just awesome. You know, because can you imagine, I'll tell you a couple of stories, and that if you did that in workplace today, you'd be carried out in handcuffs. You know, it's like kind of like how they fight on the ice, and if you do the same thing in the bar, you know, you're in trouble, but like it just happened on the ice. So, okay, so when I say 1, 2, 3, but just keep it going as loud as you can till I say stop. Because this is what we did all day long. You know, people lost their voice, they were hoarse, my throat would bleed, I would have to get cortisone shots, you know, in the back of my throat, crazy kind of stuff. So 1, 2, 3. Sold! Louder. Okay, now stop. Now feel your heart rate. Was that awesome? I mean, like, all day, every day. And, you know, some people want to know why I'm an adrenaline junkie. You know, like, when I'm doing nothing, I get really not in a good place in my head because of this. Okay, so let's add one thing to this that we've never done. So when I go 1, 2, 3, I want everybody to say Okay? 1, 2, 3. Panthers! Okay, now, Who's going to get to the Stanley Cup this year? 1, 2, 3. Panthers! And who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year? Panthers! So everybody sit down. Now that I woke you guys up. Go to the next slide. Okay, so life on the trading floor, you kind of got a feel for it. Now, the life on the trading floor was a little crazy because we actually had a floor committee. We had a policing committee because, things got a little crazy because it was, if you hit somebody, it was a $5,000 fine and a 2-day suspension, and some people did the math, and they're like, I'm good with that. So it's not a problem. And they're like, okay, I know when I want to take my week off, I'm good. So there was one day I had just beaten this guy for the election to the board. His name was Brian Hand, an ex-linebacker from Penn State. Big guy. So I'm in the pit, and I had to go to trade, so I push him like this, go by him like this, and I look, and he had fallen 3 steps and hit his head on the rail. He was not happy with me at that moment. So he gets up, and he is bright red, and he is calling my mother, my sister, every relative I know, every name in the book, telling me he's going to rip me apart. They're holding him back. They're holding me back. I'm screaming at him, and he's screaming at me, and I look at the guy behind me and go, whatever you do, don't let me go. And I'm keep going, and he's like, why? I said, because if I get close, he's going to kick my ass, so we got to make this look good. So we made it look good, and then all of a sudden, one of the floor, and I was on the floor committee, and when another floor committee guy comes over, he says, listen, David, you guys are being kicked off the trading floor, $2,000 fine. I'm like, I am not getting kicked off the trading floor. It's not happening. Go, what yourself. And so he looks at me and he goes, and he was a senior board member above me. He's like, David, it's going to look very bad in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow when the headline says New York Mercantile Exchange board member gets carried off floor by New York City police. Your choice. So I looked at him, I go, you know what I'm going to do? He's like, what? I go, I'm going to leave the floor. And what happened was this guy and I, we leave the floor, and it's so funny because this is what the trading floor was like, 40-foot ceilings, big floor, crazy stuff. So we leave the floor, and by the time we hit those doors, and this is the difference between what we did and what's going on today that we're going to work on. Okay, we hit the doors, we left the doors, and he looks at me and goes, so David, where do you want to go for lunch? I'm like, I don't know. And we hung out for the rest of the day like it was nothing. Okay, I didn't take it personally. He didn't take it personally. It was the heat of the moment. Stuff happens. And what's happening in today's world is that a look from somebody, gets people, a little shaken up. If your boss says to you, I know one person said, she was so upset, oh, my boss said it was crap. I go, how many times did you hand it in? She goes, 3 times. I'm like, well, maybe if it wasn't crap for the first 3 times, they wouldn't have said it was crap. So what I'm saying is that what we want to do is start bringing the culture up a little bit to say that you're so lucky to be here. And I'm not talking about it from the Panthers' point of view. I'm talking about it that if my kid was here, I would want them to be able to learn from who you're learning from. You're learning from each other, you're learning from your bosses, you're learning from Matt, you're learning from everybody. I'll tell you a story about, 2 other stories about the floor. One guy, this guy, David Powers. I was a broker, I was a clerk in Chicago. I had just gone from being a runner, which I was, by the way, I started making $3.75 an hour out of college. That was not easy to handle. Running orders back and forth, but it was just so great to be able to get into the position. So I got on the phone as a job clerk, and I hadn't been paid for 11 weeks. So I call the office. I think I have a secretary. I call him. He picks up the phone. He goes, meet me at the Board of Trade in the lobby tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, I'm a stupid little kid. I'm 20-something years old. I'm like, I'm going to go to the lobby. I get in the lobby. He surrounds me by all the traders, and I'm standing there as this little kid. And he rips me apart. He goes, this is the egos that were at the traders back then. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the general. You don't friggin' call me. You don't do this. I get phone calls from my father. What the hell are you doing out there? What are you making all? I'm like, I'm just trying to get paid. But this is the kind of, you were talking about abuse that we took. We took tremendous abuse, back then. One interesting story that, Vinny changed my life. This is when Vinny became from a friend to a mentor. We were on the same board together, and he was chairman. I always sat across from the chairman. So one day, I said to him, and there was 25 senior staff around the table, 25 board members, and I say, you know what, a lot of traders on the floor feel that way. Now, our board meetings were mostly at night. This was a daytime board meeting, and I totally forgot it was a daytime board meeting. And he looks at me, and he looks at his watch, he looks at me, he looks at his watch, he sits there like this, and he goes, oh, there's a lot of people that agree with you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, go downstairs and bring up 3. And I was like, what? He's like, go pick up 3. We'll wait. And it felt like 5 minutes. It was only a minute, but it was just pure silence. And I finally said to him, I go, you know what, Vinny? I'll bring him to your office in another time. So he's like, okay. And he comes back to the back of the room. This is when he became my mentor. And he puts his arm around me and he goes, you know what? That will be the last time you ever say anything that you can't back up. And I am telling you, that is the last time I said anything that I can't back up. Everything on my LinkedIn is there. Everything on my resume is real. If I go out for dinner, I tell it like it is. And this isn't a piece of advice that I'm going to give you guys that will help you through your entire life, because everybody exaggerates now. It's everybody. It's about the story. I went on my friend's, my friend had like a 120-foot boat, and I posted it, and I went, #not my boat. Okay, because there's just so much fluff now. So the one thing that you take away today is just say what you mean and mean what you say, and you will be surprised how far in life that will take you. On the trading floor, there's opportunity and chaos. Think about when they're on the rink. That's pure chaos. And then opportunity arises and the goal goes in. I want you to remember that when there's chaos going in your life and when there's chaos going all around, okay, if you could be the people that think clearly, that don't get caught up in the chaos, there's going to be tremendous opportunity, because when everybody else is freaking out, what the trading floor taught me was don't freak out. If I could handle that craziness, and by the way, think about the craziness that you guys handle every day here preparing for a game. You don't realize the position that you're in. This is not the normal job that people have outside in the real world. You guys are under such stress, you probably don't give yourself enough credit for it, but realize that you're getting, these tools that you're getting now, you're learning things from Sean, from Matt, from Bryce, from all these people that you don't even realize that you're learning. So if they're a little tough on you, or you're feeling a little, agitated or whatever, step back for a second and say, are they teaching me something? Because there's 2 things. I was the toughest father in the world, and my kids always say to me, that we realized that you were a tough father, but it was never about your ego, it was about learning. So if you find that you're feeling a little bit of pressure from your boss, you're feeling a little bit of pressure from work, step back and say, well, how can I make this work for me? What can I learn? How can this handle things, and how is this going to help me 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down in the future? Adversity, it's all about the comeback, right? So I'm going to show you, let me just say that's not it. I'm going to show you some slides about my comeback. But everybody here at one point or another is going to get their ass kicked. If you haven't already, you will. Life is hard. Life is really hard. But what's going to teach you more than anything is the comebacks that you're going to make. And that's where confidence comes in. When you're winning all the time and everything's going easy. I mean, think about our season last year, right? We're down 3-1 with Boston, right? And it's like 1 minute left. And we go to the Stanley Cup. How much did that teach everybody in this room about not giving up, about anything is possible? And being around an organization like the Panthers to see where they've come the last 10 years. The old joke was, before COVID, you didn't need social distancing, just come to the game and sit wherever you wanted, right? It was like, you don't need the social distance, just have a seat. And then look at what it's like now. Look at last year when you guys filled the arena for a watch party. I mean, that is a comeback. That is never giving up. When Vinny first took over the team, and Matt, and they were all, doing it, and I would come to the games, and it'd be like, like literally nobody here. And now this is like the jewel. You go to Fort Lauderdale, some of these watch parties, it's crazy. It's great, and you guys are part of that, and you're part of that family. Now, the key thing is, and this is what I've been talking to a lot of people about, you don't want to be part of the crystal generation. The crystal generation is what you see out there, that everybody looks great, but they break easy. And you want to be the people that look great, because obviously everybody looks great in this room, but you want to be tough. You want to be able to handle adversity. You want to be able to take what life is going to give you, because I'm telling you, with the way of the world, between AI and between the competition that's out there, listen, I grew up in the 80s. It was awesome. The 80s were, I think, were the best time in the last 5 billion years. Technology was fun. We went from, like a cassette tape to a Walkman, and we thought, we had the Walkman to the iPod thing. It was great. but it wasn't as intrusive now. So you have such competition now. You don't want to be part of the crystal generation because what it is, it's all the people that just, you've seen it. You're seeing it more and more. They get upset so easily. You know, and I'm telling you right now, you guys have a problem, okay, between two people, come to me. Let's see if we could work it out before you run to HR, okay, because that's what we did on the floor. We did conflict resolution. Because when you can learn about conflict resolution, it not only helps you in business, it helps you in your personal life, okay? And we're getting too quick to run to the hierarchy. Let's sit down, figure it out, pull me aside if there's something going on in your life and you see me walking in the stadium on a game night or whatever, or just, don't be afraid, pull me aside. Okay, I am completely approachable. And how you can avoid being part of it, as we just spoke about it. Realize life is tough. Life is going to kick you in the butt. And then what does Rocky say in one of the movies? You know, it's not how hard you get, hit down, it's how fast you can get back up. Okay, and it's corny, but it's true. Lessons in self-resistance, we talked about that. Now that is Vinny and me, okay? A very, very long time ago. So if you want to be a team player, you want to realize there are no shortcuts. I am guaranteeing you, if you guys find a shortcut, it's wrong. There is a difference between a shortcut and making things efficient and making it work for you than trying to take the easy way out. Respect the differences of opinion. Now, this is a big thing these days, right? You know, we are so polarized on everything. And what do we have coming up in the next year or two? An election, right? Now, let me tell you something that's so cool about coming to the stadium. When we're in that stadium, there are people from different political sides, different races, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic areas, and everybody's rooting for one thing, the Panthers. So it shows that everybody can get together. Everybody can work together. And what I teach when I was just teaching in a couple of colleges, I would literally, this is back when Trump and Hillary were running, and I would have great debates in my class. And then I would say, good, now go out and have coffee with each other. Okay, because we have to get back to the point where we can talk about differences of opinions. And I always say the line, I thought about what you were saying. I could see how you might feel that way. I just don't agree with you. And so how's your day going? Not, I don't agree with you, screw you. Okay? And that's what's happening. And we have to get away from that. If you can start working back, you can be the next part of the generation that understands that having a coherent conversation and an intelligent conversation and a conversation that works for you, that people can have differences of opinion. And it's okay. This is going to be a brutal year coming up. Okay, you can see it already, not just with the presidential election, but with every election, all these topics that are coming up in the world. Let's make sure that we talk it out. And we don't want to hurt any relationships in this room. We want to end any, I mean, some of these families that don't even talk to each other anymore because they're on two different sides of a thing, that's ridiculous. You know, keep your friends close, keep your, they say, Godfather, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But keep the people that are in your lives, but don't be afraid to have these conversations with people. It's all okay. Leave your ego at the door. Egos are a waste of friggin' time. You know what, I mean, like, with all the things that I've done, I always just say, listen, that's what everybody should do. I do a lot of charity work. I do a lot of work with the kids. I give back. You know, like, the key thing is if you could just stay humble and be who you are, people, like Vinny. Vinny is the most humble guy I've ever met. I mean, we were at Junior Achievement, and he gave this huge, number to them on one of their events. There's no name. He doesn't put his name on the building. We were at the United Negro College Fund luncheon. Huge check. People are like, they lost their breath. He doesn't have his name on it. Vinny just, if you see Vinny and Teresa here, you would never know just what they're worth. And that's the greatest thing. That is the pure example of true humbleness. Not about your schedule. And I learned this very early, and I've practiced it today. So when I was 50, so it was a few years ago, there was this guy, I've been waiting to get to meet with him. It took me 3 months to get a meeting. I go to his office at 8 o'clock in the morning. The secretary said he had a tooth emergency. He's not going to be back, and I said, when can I meet with him? He goes, either at 4:30 this afternoon or 3.5 months from now. So I said, I'll take the 4:30. Now, I had nothing to do. I wasn't supposed to be in the city, so I went to movies, I went to lunch, I went to the museum, because what you're going to understand, there are going to be people in your life that if you can get in front of, they can change your trajectory. They can change your life. So realize, I hate when somebody says to me, well, I can't make it. Well, I'm like, I can make it, and if you want to actually have this meeting, let's do it. So make sure that you do that. Being a leader, understand risk, reward, and collateral damage. Realize as a leader, you will not make everybody happy. It is impossible, but it's okay. Don't take it personally. Don't be a dick. There's a difference between, working out something and making it fun and making it work it, your way, and then just being mean about it. Be straightforward. Again, say what you mean what you say. How many times have you spoken to either a boss or a friend and they say one thing and then you come back in and you find out that it's nothing they talked about? Well, then you lose respect. You can't trust them. One thing that people say about me when I say it, good or bad, when somebody says, is that a threat? I'm like, no, I don't threat. I do. You screwed me over. I'm now going to finish this. Or I said that I'm going to do this for you, and I do it, even if it's at a loss to me. I've promised things that I thought was going to cost one thing, it cost double. As a trader, you never go back on a trade, never go back on your word. Always stay connected. Even as a boss, okay? And it's easier to stay connected now than ever. Like when we had, problems at the exchange, I would come in on a Saturday morning. I didn't know the back office, but they're like, what are you doing here? I would bring them breakfast. I would read magazines. I'm like, if you're here, I'm here. So as a boss and as you start getting up in the ranks, don't lose the connection that you have with the people that are working with you, and make sure if you're working with a boss, figure out ways to stay connected with them. Temptation is never worth it. I could have been worth a lot more money if I made deals on the floor. Okay, I never made a deal. And I'll tell you one thing, now with the world, with electronic tracking and everything else, if you make a deal with somebody or you do something you're not supposed to, you're going to get caught. And it is not worth it. Jail is probably a really bad place, and none of us want to be there. Nice to your round table. This is, I hate when I say this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you, and then I tell you something more important. So this is one of the most important things that you'll ever see. Have knights and knightesses of your round table. These are the people that will help you when the shit hits the fan. These are the people that will be there when things are great. And like like my father's a knight in my round table. And what you'll find is there are permanent members of your round table, and there's transitory members of your round table. Family tends to be permanent. So my father was the knight that pushed me, no matter what I did. It was enough, more. I remember the first day I walked in, I go, hey, I made $1 million trading this year. And he looked over his glasses without hesitation. He goes, well, if you didn't fuck around, you would have made 2. And you know what? At first I was like, what? Why would you say that, right? What's that all about? And then I started thinking about it, like, well, I did kind of fuck around here, and I did this, and I did this. But he was able to say the truth. I have my friend Steven. Nothing ever I did was ever good enough. Ever. Okay? I think my mic just fell. That nothing was good enough. But I could go to him, and he would tell me what it is. And then I have Bobby. Bobby was the knight of my round table that no matter what I did was great. If I wanted to have a feel-good moment, I called Bobby. And what you'll find in my kids and, Tracy is a member of my round table, people that you can trust are the most important thing. So have your round table, but make sure you have people at your round table that can look at you and say, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? You are absolutely frigging crazy. Because when was the last time that you stood in front of a mirror when you were going to do something and said, this is a lousy idea, but I'm going to do it anyway? Right? So have that person or persons, okay, that can tell you what it's really about. Pathways to leadership. Look, listen, learn. I remember I was on the trading floor in Chicago for 3 weeks, and this guy looked like Rip Van Winkle. Okay, crazy long beard, old guy. I mean, he might not, I was 20, so he might not have been as old as I thought now that I'm older. It's amazing how that happens. Okay, but he looks at me and he walks over and he goes, kid, I know who you are. I'm like, because I went to Chicago because my father was a big trader in silver in New York, and I wanted to be away. I wanted to just try it on my own. And he goes, you're Marty's kid. And I'm like, okay. He goes, you're going to get into the pit one day. I have been here for 30 years. I will never get into the pit. Let me give you some advice. Pick up something every day that you're here. The way that a runner, runs to is he running the order to the ring? What does the trader look like? Is he sweating? Is his eyebrow move? There was one trader that I realized if he turned around and went like this, it was a sell order because you had to breathe in to say sold. I had one guy, this guy Tommy O'Connor. Every time he had a 500 lot order, he'd push my shoulder down to the ground, and I'd have to hold him up. And when he offered 500 lots and he didn't touch me, I knew he was full of shit. I knew he had nothing. But he says, learn something every day. Watch how the clock moves. Look at people. Who's sleeping with who? Who was talking to somebody the other day that they weren't talking with, now? But notice everything. And you saw that trading floor. There was a lot going on. Well, think about where you are here. This is like it being on a trading floor. There is so much to putting on a game. You've got the car attendants. You've got the people cleaning the ice. You've got the skaters that come out. You've got all the ushers. You've got all of you. There's a billion things going on. Watch it all. Take it all in. It creates your mind in a way to look this way, not this way. Okay? And this will make you better, faster, stronger, and brighter than any one of your friends. What I used to do is I used to take with an intern, I used to stick them on the trading floor for the summer. And for the first 2 weeks, I would just have them stand there and do nothing. And I would always get a call from his parent. My kid is standing there and he's not learning anything. So I would go to the kid, I'd give him the same speech. I'd tell him, look around. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, you're right. And he learned so much. So next time you go to a game, when you're passing by people, and you're passing by the ushers, and you're passing by the people parking there, realize what it takes to get this thing going, okay, and learn it all. Take it all in. We're going to talk about three-dimensional thinking in a second. Stay light on your feet just simply means that if you're going to make a decision and it's not working, it's okay. When I went down to Quantico we were invited, I was one of 17 traders, to meet with the generals, to talk to them about the way we thought on the trading floor. And I remember I was going over the obstacle course, and I was very heavy, and I'm like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to do this. I am going to get through this course. And he comes over and he grabs me, and he goes, listen, because he knew there was just no way I was going to make it through this course. So he goes, I want to tell you how many times a soldier gets killed by that attitude. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, there's a difference between quitting and a strategic retreat. So too many people get an idea and they're stuck on the idea. Like you're working on a project. This is the idea. We got to do it this way. Don't. Pivot. It's okay. Take a look at it. Take a step back. Take a look at it like you're starting over. And maybe it's not the greatest idea. Being able to say that you're wrong is really, really important. The only person that was right 1,000% of the time was my ex-wife. Okay, because, I remember I said to her the day I was leaving, I said, I spoke to the mathematicians. It's theoretically impossible for me to be wrong every time. And she's like, no, you're wrong. So realize that. Expect failure. Know that if you don't have failure, it's the oldest cliche in the book, if you don't have failure, you don't try, but it happens to be true. Time-life moments. Now, a time-life moment is a moment in your timeline that will change your life for the good or the better. And you have them all the time, but you need to know when you're having them so you can really expand off them. Now, I remember this morning, it was the most amazing clear morning. It was about 75 degrees. It was just, I had a great trip into the city. And, I parked my car in the building, and I walked to the elevator because I was going to go up to breakfast. I made a breakfast club for this group, and the express elevator wasn't there. So I was going to go to the local, and I didn't feel like taking the local. I walked out of the building, saw what an amazing day it was, went into my office, and the first plane hit. So I had just parked in the South Tower. I was going up to a breakfast club that I invented for all the traders. We got free breakfast at Windows of the World every day. And, just simply because there was an issue with the express elevator, I didn't take the local, is why I'm talking here today. That was a time-life moment for me. Okay, that was a moment that my entire timeline, if I got into that elevator, everybody died at breakfast. We lost 37 people. Okay, and what it taught me was, one, life is precious, and you have to really, enjoy every moment. But it taught me that you just never know what's going to happen. Right. So what ends up happening is that, we come down at the exchange, as you can see, where NYMEX was. That's the exchange, right? So we got a call, or I didn't say, Vinny got a call, because he was chairman, from Washington saying, world oil prices are going crazy, you need to get them up. Now, there was no electronic trading at the time. So he called the board that night. Two friends of mine went down from 64th Street, walked all the way down to see if the building was still standing. It was still standing. We meet at what was called then the Helmsley Palace. Vinny does this like a military operation. That is Vinny at 45 years old. Okay, he took on that role to get one of the largest exchanges in the world up and running in the most crazy time, and we were in ground zero. So we were the only building that was in ground zero that was open secretly. And we brought in, I think it was 1,500 people every day down the river, up into the building, three foot perimeter, got him in, got him trading, got him out, and got the world's oil prices and gold prices stationary. But he ran it like a military operation. And again, so he put everybody into groups. Now, there's this guy that I ran against a couple times on the board who hated my guts, and another guy that hated my guts. And Vinny goes, listen, you three are working together. And I went like, really? And he goes, this is what you guys are good at. I don't want to hear any shit about you guys don't like each other. I don't want to hear any crap that, anything that there's an issue. Get the job done. He puts you on a task, he puts you on a mission, and we got it done. And we got the exchange up and running. Now, the incredible thing about that picture on the left where Vinny's speaking, so you got Hillary Clinton on the right? So she's kind of, not in politics anymore. You got Rudy Giuliani in the middle. Well, he's not in politics anymore. You got the governor behind. He's out. The only guy still standing is Vinny. Okay, he's the guy that made it through all these years because he had a plan, he kept it quiet, he kept humble, and he kept going forward. But it's amazing to see what he did as a young Vinny at 45 years old with that kind of pressure. I mean, he was up on the roof of the building with heating oil up to his ankles because the generators were leaking. I mean, this is a hands-on general type of guy. And you learn so much from not only him, but by the team that he put together. The art of screwing up. Guys, you got to screw up more than you've ever done. Screwing up's great. I'm so good at screwing up. But the key about screwing up is not to get crazy about you screwing up. I lost 60% of my trades every day. Now, if I would have sat down and been upset, I would not have gotten another trade off. So, and we're going to talk about this. These are all just topics we're going to talk about and get more in depth when we do the training. But you need to learn how to rebound quickly. These people that you mess up and you go, oh, God, and you think about it for 3-4 days about how you screwed up or you fucked up. It's a waste of time. You do the screw up, you figure it out, you figure out a possibility, and you move forward. Realize that whatever you're doing, if you mess up, you will absolutely be able to fix. Never walk into your boss and say, listen, first of all, never say, we screwed up, because that never works. And never say, I screwed up, you have a problem. Walk in and say, I screwed up, this is my solution. And I don't care if the solution's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just happy that you thought something through to try to fix the problem that you're going to have. So it's about accountability. 3D thinking, three-dimensional thinking. It's the oldest question in the book. What's the answer to this? Half full, right? Everybody feel this is half full? Anything else? Exactly. Well, everybody looks at this as half full, half empty. But, the way that we teach it is like this is half full or half empty. It's cold. I can drink the water. I can pour it on a plant. Okay? I can freeze the water and make it into ice. Okay? If I had to break the glass to cut my way out of someplace, I could do that. There's 34 different things that you can look at this glass and say. But we all get used to looking at it in a one-dimensional, one-question type of thing. So every time that you have a question that comes in front of you or a problem, look at it three-dimensionally. And we're going to talk about that too. How you can take the first thought that you have in your head, knock it out, you could always come back to that later, and then think about it in multi-dimensional ways. Okay, and if you do that, you'll be so far ahead of everybody else, and you're going to see your performance rise, you're going to see your status rise, and you're going to see your profession rise. Radical responsibility. A term I learned. Now, remember Bobby, the guy that I told you was, my knight in my round table, that I could do no wrong? Well, I was going through a bad time in my life. I was in a lousy relationship that I kept getting in. And let me explain to you how screwed up this was. Imagine, I was the guy that bet 10 on the game, 20 on the instant replay, and then found the game on ESPN Classic and bet it again. It would be like the equivalent of betting on the Panthers before the series, before the final series last year. We lost, right? But it's a fair bet because we thought we were going to win. And then somebody calling you up and saying, hey, the Panthers are playing Las Vegas now. You want to bet? And me saying, sure, I want to bet. I think the Panthers are going to win. And then in 2 years from now, having them call up and I said, hey, I've been watching this game, the Panthers game on ESPN. They're playing they're playing Las Vegas again. Same game. Do you want to bet it again? Well, that was me. Okay, and I was in a bad funk. I was in bad shape mentally, emotionally, physically, and I had to take radical responsibility. So that was me 2 years ago. a little heavier, about 70 pounds heavier. So Bobby comes in one day when I look like that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, Bobby never left work. He is busy as busy can be. And he ends up ripping me apart like I've never been ripped apart. And when the nice guy at your round table comes in to yell at you for the first time in 40 years, you better listen. And he's like, get off your ass. It's time for you to get back. I had just gone through 9 years I had a horrific accident where I've gone blind in my right eye. And I've been in pain, and between the 9/11 physical pain that I have and the pain that I had, both mentally and emotionally and physically, losing the eye. And I was just sitting at home, and I turned into that. So finally I realized I had to look inward. And what we all need to do is, if we're going to make changes in our life, we need to have radical responsibility, and we can't blame it on other people, and we can't blame it on our situation. We have to look in and say, I can fix this. And we're all going through things. What you're going to learn in life is that we all have one thing in common. At different points of our life, we're all going to be in pain, whether it be mental pain, physical pain, emotional pain. We're going to go through things. And when that happens, and this is what I do a lot of coaching on too, how to get out of that, how to pull yourself out from the bootstraps and create a new life. And that is a very, very important process. And if you can have radical responsibility with your work ethic, your health ethic, your life ethic, and just once in a while look in the mirror and go, maybe it wasn't all them. I have to look at my past relationships that were not good. And as my friend said, David, you're the only constant that were in that relationship. And I never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, I was in all of them. They were all different ones, right? And I am a completely different person now than I was just a few years ago because I was honest with myself. And if you guys take that role with me and we sit there and we talk and we figure out, what do you really want? What's your dreams? What's your passions? Where do you want to end up? What is your future vision? Because this, well, I'm going to get to that slide in a second, but we're going to talk about your future self in a second. We got one more slide. Exponential networking, we'll make this quick. Talk to everybody. The joke about me is I can talk to, as you can tell, I can talk to a chair that doesn't have anybody in it for a half an hour and think that I had a good conversation. Okay, so like the other day, I don't know who it was. I don't see the person here. I was in the elevator and I said to them, hello, how are you? He's like, good. And then as he was leaving, I said, have a good night. And he said, okay, you too, and walked out. Nothing really wrong with that, right? But he's never going to remember me. And I remember him. So the simple thing is just to look backwards and say, have a good night. Everybody needs to be seen, okay? If you see everybody, I mean literally see everybody from the checkout person. I can't stand it when people are at the lines and you're dealing with some of the people, let's say Publix, and they're checking you out. I'm always like, so how's your day doing? And these people are like, he's talking to me, and I talk to everybody and I see everybody, okay? And if you see everybody, you will learn that people will see you. When you go on a plane next time, put your phone away a little bit, put your laptops away a little bit, put your iPads a little bit away. Talk to the person to your left, talk to the person to your right. You don't know who you're sitting next to. I have literally met people in the craziest places just by saying hello and starting up a conversation. And the exponential networking will help. I'll give you a perfect example. My friend Ryan, I've just moved to Boca, he calls me up. He goes, your friend Vinny's being honored at Junior Achievement. Tomorrow night, are you going? And I didn't want to tell him I didn't know he was being honored, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm going. He's like, good, I'll see you there. I'm like, I got to Google Junior Achievements. I Google Junior Achievements. I find out who the CEO is. I call the CEO. I go, hi, my name's David Greenberg. I'm an old friend of Vinny's. I'd like to see Vinny. Could you get me, if I buy a ticket, could you get me at a table next to him? She's like, I'll get back to you. So she gets back to me. She's like, sure, come. So I get there, and we introduce each other. She goes, no, you're really a friend of Vinny. I spoke to Matt, and I spoke to Dan. And so I'm like, yeah, so where am I sitting? She goes, Vinny's table. And also, this is kind of funny, and I'm not going to say this. I'll tell this to Matt one day. But when you're invited to a table and you don't have to pay for it, always take the seat with your back towards the front, right? So I take the seat back to the front, and all the senior staff, it's Vinny's table, take the front. And there's one seat next to me, and I'm, literally looking backwards. And all of a sudden, Vinny's like, you mind if I sit here? I'm like, Vinny, it's your table. You can sit wherever you want. So we start talking, and he whispers in my ear. He's like, David, I need somebody down here from the old days that knows me and that can speak for me and that I can trust and everything else. How would you like to work with me on that? Okay, so I'm like, sure. So all of a sudden, Vinny gives him a lot of money. He says, you're going to sit on this board. You're going to sit on that board. I start sitting on boards with him. And then I start doing some stuff here. I meet this woman, Katrina. I don't know if some of you might remember her. She introduces me to Lisa Scott Fowles at Winterfest. Well, there's another 100 people I just met from just that one thing. So by going to having that one phone call with Ryan, to making the phone call to the CEO of Junior Achievement, who then I end up sitting next to Vinny, who then I end up sitting next to the board. I end up doing the work that I've been doing for him for the past 7 years. I'm sitting with Katrina, and I'm here today. That is the timeline off of one moment and one meeting. Okay, so what you learn, you gotta love this mic. So what you learn, it's okay. So what you learn is talk to everybody, have these meetings, have these moments, because you just never know where it's going to end up. Okay, you see me in the hallway, say hello. Find out what's going on. Tell me a little bit about something yourself. It will get you used to speaking to somebody that you're not normally used to speaking to. I will tell you, it will change your existence and it will change your life. I don't care if there are people working at the gas station or whatever. I talk to everybody, and I try to help everybody out. Panthers University is something that we're working on. It's going to be a lecture series, either in person or by podcast, where we're going to have people with expertise that you might never get to hear, right? Lawyers, health people, people high in finance, some of my friends, hopefully some of Vinny's friends, some other people's friends. So we're going to keep it as a continuing educational process. So this way, this is something that you guys will just have something to look forward to, and you can either come to a lunch like this, or we'll have it online. I'm working on a podcast right now. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. I was thinking about Panthers Pride podcast. And what I also learned is you announce it in a place like this before you even mention it. So try that one day. Okay, these are going to be some of the upcoming topics that Rob and I were talking about. Okay, the social shift with Gen Z, how to thrive over the next 20 years, the pain and joy of innovation, the discovery process, fulfillment by doing the work, the necessary dimensions for the effort and maximum success. So that was just a kind of a briefing, but we're going to really get into stuff. Okay, and if we get onto the one-on-one stuff, you'll basically have your own strategic advisor, your own business coach, because listen, some people are here. This is a stepping stone, right? And that's normal. But the question is, how do you get most out of working for the Panthers, and realizing that you are getting an education and being paid for it? This is like going to grad school in real time. So if your boss gets a little crazy, or you get a little uptight, realize that there's a lot of stuff going on here, and there's a lot of pressure going up the alley. And if you have a problem with somebody or with something else, come talk to me. We'll figure it out. Now, this changed my life. This is what somebody sent me. Always be defined by a vision of your future, not the memories of your past. This changed my life. I thought that was the day Bobby came. And then somebody sent me this. It's like that time-life moment where I said, okay, I got to change. And I thought about what do I want to do. I said, I wanted to become the distinguished gentleman. I wanted to leave the trading floor, because you saw how we were on the trading floor. I wanted to leave that behind. I wanted to calm my mind out a little bit differently. So this guy, Joe Dispenza, if anybody follows him, he's a remarkable man. Okay, and you have to have, so what I said is like, I want to be able to lose, 60, well, at that time it was 50 pounds. I want to look better. I want to feel like myself again, and I want to portray a different version of myself. It's okay to reinvent yourself at different stages of your life. It's perfectly okay. Who you are today in this room will not be, hopefully, who you are 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years, and 30 years from now, because your life experiences are going to shape you. And the question is, will you allow those life experiences to shape you into somebody that's angry and jaded? Okay, or, like me, my mom passed away when she was 55 of cancer. I was in 9/11. I lost a lot of people. I'm in pain every day. I lost my eyesight in my right eye in a terrible accident. And you will ask people, and nobody has a better outlook in life than I do. because I chose to not let those things defeat me, not to be a victim, and to say, how can I become a better human being because of that? And I always tell people I see more clearly out of one eye than I ever did with two. You know, it's crazy, right? You know, it's like, you know, how can this guy be so happy? You know, because I saw so much death. You know, and I said this in a lecture the other day. I said, and if anybody in this room I ever hear says growing old sucks as you get older, I will rip you apart. Growing old is frustrating. Growing old is tough. Growing old is tiring, and growing old is painful. Dying sucks. So it's like one time they asked Gary Vee, they go, tell me something to motivate me. And he looks at the guy, he says, you're going to die. He's like, that's what you tell me? He goes, well, if that doesn't motivate you, nothing will, right? So I'm not going to take Gary's line, but I'm going to say to you, be motivated. You guys are in a spot where you're young, you're healthy, you're doing amazing things. You're with a great organization, and things are going to get tough. They're going to get tough on you. They're going to come down on you. They're going to teach you things. But your first initial reaction of like, why are they being mean or why are they being tough? I am telling you, switch that to the mindset of like, oh my God, what can I learn from this experience? This experience can teach me how to be tougher. Because like my son who, you know, I mean, I was crazy tough on him. He ends up working for this guy who's the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, who's noted as the meanest guy on Wall Street, and he can handle it. And now that he's working 90-hour weeks at UBS, and my daughter, who's a photographer, but she's also a lawyer, working her butt off to be a photographer, they all said that by me being so hard on them, allowed them to get into the real world without feeling that they were getting beaten up, and they were able to take control. And if you guys want to learn that, you want to come into this world, you want to see how we can move you forward from where you are now, which is all great, but to be a real performance athlete in life. You know, like one of the people that I coach is Ellie Smart over here, who is you should meet her. She is a Red Bull cliff diver, or as I like to say, a major adrenaline junkie. Okay, she jumps off cliffs, bridges all over the world. You're doing a yacht, right? She's going to jump off a yacht soon, you know, for one of her dives. But to meet people like her that have that, you know, that drive and that intelligence and that will to succeed and willing to take failure gives me a whole new outlook of hope. And I want to meet all of you because I want that outlook of hope, because what you see in the news and what you hear, it's a little tough being an older person saying, where are we going? But everybody in this room, everybody with the Panthers, everybody who's here, everybody who's part of this process can be a beacon of not only hope, but you guys can be the future leaders of this country and of business. And you're starting off in the right place to do it. So let's do one more time. I want to stand up, okay, just one more time to finish this thing up. I'm going to ask you one more time, who are we? Panthers. Now we can do better than that. Who are we? Panthers. And who's going to win the cup this year? Panthers. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And seriously, feel free to absolutely pull me aside, talk to me. You know, oh wait, my email, there we go. Email, Instagram, follow me on Instagram, just a cheap plug. David Douglas Greenberg. And just, you know, whatever you guys need, I am here to be at your disposal, period. It's my gift, you know, to the team. Vinny has been tremendous to me in my life, and it's all about giving back. And somebody asked me in junior achievements one day and said, he goes, and this is something you should remember. They said, what's the number? What's the number that you know you're a success? And I looked at the kid and I go, 1. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, make a difference in one person's life and you'll be a success. And if everybody in this room makes a difference in one person's life, there will be many lives changed. And that is when you're successful. Don't try to compete with your neighbors, your family, your fraternity brothers, your sorority sisters, anybody. It's a waste of time. The only competition you should have is with yourself to become better than who you are, who you can be, and who you're going to be. And I'm happy to help you through the process. So thank you very much and enjoy lunch.